I found his wedding ring on the edge of the sink. The steam from my shower hadn't touched it. It was already cold, sitting perfectly still, like it had been placed there with purpose. At first, I thought he'd just forgotten it. Noah was forgetful sometimes, but something about how deliberate it looked made my stomach turn. It wasn't the absence of the ring. It was the absence of him. He didn't say goodbye. He just disappeared and left the ring to do the talking. And it said everything. It told me the life we'd built was disposable. It whispered that he didn't believe I'd come after him, that I wouldn't piece it together, that I'd fold. But he forgot who he married. He forgot I don't let go. I unravel until I understand. The silence in the house felt manufactured, like it had been staged, like someone had carefully scrubbed away all signs of a man before dawn. His toothbrush was missing, his cologne, the hoodie he always left on the armchair. Gone. The hallway smelled like sleep and betrayal. I checked the garage. His car was gone too. But mine was still parked, untouched, like an abandoned witness. I didn't even cry. I just walked into Miles's room. My son was still asleep, thumb in his mouth, curled under the blanket we brought home from the hospital. That baby blue, knit with his name stitched in the corner by my mom. Our symbol, our beginning. I sat down beside him and pulled the edge of it over his shoulder. My heart stayed in my throat, right next to my breath. I tried to make sense of it. Maybe he left for a trip. Maybe an emergency. Maybe something snapped and he'd call in an hour. But then I opened the drawer in the hallway where we kept the important things: passports, documents, emergency cash. His folder was missing. Just his. And in its place, a receipt for an ATM withdrawal at 3:12 a.m. I ran to the kitchen and grabbed my phone, logged into the app we both used for Miles's savings. It was a habit I did monthly, just to check. Mendian. Balance, $0. My blood ran cold. That account held 5 years of hope. Birthday cards from grandparents, tooth fairy money, 100 small sacrifices, and now, nothing. He didn't just walk away from me. He stole from our son. And he did it quietly, efficiently, like a professional, like he'd practiced, like he'd been planning this for longer than I could even guess. My hands were shaking, but I wasn't afraid. I was furious. I was humiliated. And I was starting to feel something worse, resolve. I opened the front door to see if he'd left anything. No note. No sign. But as I turned back toward the stairs, something caught my eye through the garage window. The baby blanket. The one he always said we had to keep safe. It was hanging over the back seat of my car, and suddenly I knew it wasn't. An accident. He took it with him, then left it behind. On purpose. Like he wanted me to find it. Like it was a breadcrumb or a mistake. But Noah wasn't careless, which meant this was a message. A challenge. A final insult. Or maybe a warning. Either way, I picked it up, and something inside me crystallized. I remembered the first time he held Miles in that blanket. He cried. Called him the one thing I ever got right. But maybe he only cried because it looked good. Maybe he only stayed because the role made him feel admired. Because when the applause died, so did the act. And I was the only one who didn't see it. I brought the blanket inside, folded it with shaky hands, and placed it on the kitchen table, right next to the ring. I looked at the two things he left behind. One that meant commitment, and one that meant creation. And I realized he had no intention of honoring either. He didn't leave his family. He abandoned it. I replayed the last few weeks. The fake smiles, the forced laughs, the way he'd kiss Miles goodnight with eyes that didn't match the moment. I thought it was work stress. or seasonal depression. But now, every memory felt staged, and every gesture rehearsed. I had been loving a mask, not a man. I wanted to scream. But the house was too quiet. I wanted to break something. But the silence felt sacred. Like if I stayed still long enough, the truth would rise up from the walls and explain itself. Instead, I stood in the kitchen, holding that blanket like armor, and realized I wasn't broken. I was bracing. He thought he could vanish. He thought I'd freeze. But I had everything I needed. A motive, a memory, and the first thread of a trail. I was going to find him, and I was going to take back what he stole. Noah and I met in a thunderstorm, one of those summer ones that rolls in without warning and floods the sidewalks in seconds. I was late for work, heels soaked, umbrella flipped inside out. He offered me his jacket, like something out of a movie. He smiled, and I remember thinking, this is the kind of man who remembers birthdays. He did. For a while. Our beginning was messy, fast, romantic. I moved in within 5 months. Everyone said we were rushing it, but it felt right. He made me feel chosen. Like I wasn't just another woman passing through his life. I was the one. Who made him want to slow down? He told me I made him feel still. I didn't realize that stillness would become silence. We got married in the fall. Nothing extravagant. Just close friends, family, and a baby blue ribbon tied around my bouquet because I had a feeling. I was right. 2 months later, I was pregnant. Noah cried in the kitchen when I told him. Said he'd waited his whole life to be a father. I believed him. I needed to. Those first years were golden. Exhausting, sure, but golden. We were sleep-deprived and broke, but in love. Noah would rock, miles at 3 a.m., singing off-key lullabies. He'd bring me coffee in the shower. I thought, this is it. This is home. I was finally safe. Or so I told myself, over and over, like a prayer. He was attentive, present, almost too much. He handled the bills, the budget, even the diaper subscriptions. I've got it, he always said. I thought it was sweet. I let him take the reins because I was tired, and he seemed to thrive under control. I didn't realize control was the only thing he ever truly loved. Looking back, I see how I bent for him. Skipped dinners with friends, muted parts of myself he didn't find productive. He didn't like mess, or spontaneity, or emotion. Really. I learned to present calm, even when I was drowning, because peace was the currency he demanded, and I paid with my voice. Still, I clung to the moments that felt right. The family walks on Sundays. The way Miles would run to the door when Noah came home. The inside jokes. The slow dances in the kitchen. We were so close to being the family I always wanted. So close I didn't notice how much of it was illusion. There were signs, but they whispered. He stopped leaving love notes. Stopped checking on me during night feedings. His phone became a part of his hand. Passwords changed. His laugh changed too. Less full. More distant. Like he was laughing in another room, even when he was right next to me. He started taking more solo drives. Needed more space. I thought maybe it was fatherhood hitting him late, or burnout, or the weight of being the provider. I excused the detachment because I didn't want to see the shape it was becoming. Distance molded into deception. And when I asked if he was okay, he'd always say, "You worry too much," always with that tired smile. Like I was the drama. Like concern was a flaw. I'd shrink back, tell myself to wait it out, to be patient. Because maybe he'd come back to us, to himself. Maybe it was just a phase. Madison, his sister, was no help. She always said I was lucky to have him, that I should be more understanding. He's always carried too much on his shoulders, she once told me. You can't expect him to carry your emotions, too. It stuck with me. It made me feel selfish for needing my husband. I stopped asking for affection. I stopped sharing my dreams. I stopped being a woman and became a role: mother, cook, manager of the household. And he became a ghost in his own home, one who smiled for photos but vanished between them. But I still believed, because I needed to. I told myself every family has seasons, that love could survive dormancy, that the man who offered me his jacket in the rain would eventually come back, that we'd find each other again in the quiet. But now, standing in this silence, this manufactured, intentional absence, I know better. He wasn't waiting to come back. He was waiting to escape. It started with a missed bedtime, then another, then whole evenings where Noah didn't come home until after Miles was asleep. He'd text me, "Long day, traffic, sorry babe," but the excuses were too neat, too rehearsed, and the guilt never matched the distance in his eyes. He wasn't just tired, he was somewhere else. I began to notice how little he touched me. Not just physically, emotionally. Conversations turned transactional. Grocery lists, school forms. Did you pay the gas bill? Did you schedule the dentist? Our marriage became a checklist, and I was the only one ticking boxes. I used to tell him everything. Now I was talking to myself. He stopped asking about my day, stopped noticing new things, haircuts, moods, bruises from bumping into the crib. Again. I once cried during dinner, and he didn't look up from his phone. That was the night something cracked. Not loudly. Just a hairline fracture. A beginning. One afternoon, I saw him watching Miles play in the yard. His face looked foreign. Not proud, not soft, just blank. I asked what he was thinking, and he said, "He's growing fast." That's it. No smile, no warmth, just observation. Like a stranger witnessing someone else's child. It chilled me. He started locking his phone, not just with a passcode, Face ID, new apps. Hidden folders. I asked what he was hiding, half joking. He laughed, kissed my cheek and said, "Don't be paranoid." But something about the way he kissed our son started to feel like a lie, like goodbye rehearsals. There were random charges on our statements, gas stations in towns he never mentioned, hotel rooms labeled conference nights that never lined up with his calendar. I asked him once, and he looked me dead in the eye and said, "I'd never cheat on you, Camille. I'm not my father." But he didn't say he hadn't. He became hyper-controlling about money. "Don't transfer that. Let me handle the bills." He even started suggesting we move Miles's savings into something more flexible. When I resisted, he dropped it. But the next month, he accidentally missed the deposit we set up. Then the next. I should have seen it then. He told Madison things before he told me. Vacations, loans, career plans. She knew about his raise 2 weeks before I did. Once I overheard her say, "You're doing the right thing, Noah. You've sacrificed enough." I never found out what she meant, but I stopped trusting both of them that day. He changed the emergency contacts on Miles's daycare form. Put Madison first, not me. When I asked why, he said, "You're always overwhelmed." I wasn't. I was just alone, and that made me doubt myself more than anything he ever said out loud. That's how gaslighting works. It whispers until you rewrite your own truth. I found a receipt in his coat pocket from a jewelry store. Not my size, not my style. I wanted to believe it was for me. A surprise. But I knew it wasn't. I left it on the counter, waiting for him to explain. He never did. It vanished the next morning, along with the coat. He stopped using the word "we." It was always, "I'll figure it out," or "I'll fix it." Like we weren't a team anymore. Like I was a liability. A nag. A wall between him and whatever fantasy he was building on the side. I didn't know if it was another woman, another life, or just a slow fade into nothing. I Googled emotional infidelity, highlighted half the symptoms. I took screenshots of our finances, just in case. I started writing everything down, times, dates, things that felt off. I didn't know what I was preparing for, but my body did. My body knew we were unraveling, long before my mind admitted it. I stopped sleeping, stopped eating properly. I'd lay awake listening to his breathing, wondering if he was already gone in some way I couldn't see. The man beside me was familiar, but not known. I started grieving while he was still warm in our bed. That's a specific kind of torment. The truth wasn't loud. It was layered. 1,000 tiny betrayals that didn't scream, but bled. He didn't have to hit me to hurt me. He just had to vanish inch by inch, until I looked around and realized I was the only one left trying. And even then, I wasn't ready for what came next. I woke up before sunrise, instinct screaming. The house was still, too still. Noah usually left his shoes by the door, muddy prints from his early runs. But that morning, nothing. No coffee brewing, no faint music from his phone. Just the kind of silence that doesn't belong in a home with a child. I checked Miles's room first. He was safe, curled in his blanket, breathing soft. At least he was untouched. For now. Then I saw it. The wedding ring on the sink. Placed, not dropped, not forgotten. Like a signature. Like the last page of a story only he knew the ending to. My heart didn't break in that moment. It braced. I walked down the hallway, every picture frame suddenly too quiet, every shadow suspicious, every breath of air unfamiliar. I reached the drawer where we kept our important documents. His passport, gone. Our joint emergency cash envelope, empty. The keys to our safety deposit box, missing. I stood still, long enough to hear the lie ring out through the house like a siren. He didn't leave, he escaped. And then I ran to my phone, bank login, Miles's savings, 0. I checked it twice, 3 times, cleared the app, logged in again, still 0. Every deposit gone, every birthday gift, every college someday fund, every dollar from 2 exhausted parents trying to build a future he had no intention of sharing. That was the moment everything changed. I screamed. Not words, just air and agony and disbelief. My hands shook as I dialed his number, straight to voicemail. I tried again. Nothing. Over and over. Until my voice cracked and I was screaming into the silence. Where are you? How could you? But even the silence felt rehearsed. I opened the garage out of instinct. His car was gone. Of course. But mine was still there. And in the back seat, folded, clean, fragile, was the baby blanket. The one he swore he'd never take out of the house. The one we kept in Miles's drawer, next to his first pacifier and a worn-out bedtime book. Why would he take it, only to leave it? I picked it up like it was alive, like it had something to say. It smelled like lemon detergent and something else. Airplane shampoo? My stomach turned. Was he taking it with him? Or leaving it as a reminder? I wrapped it around my shoulders, cold suddenly despite the heat. This wasn't just abandonment. It was war. Then came the message. A single text. Don't make this harder than it already is. No name, no apology, no explanation. Like I was the problem, like he was the victim. My hands curled into fists, the blanket caught between my fingers like a lifeline. I felt something inside me crack, not a break. A shift, I wasn't going to cry anymore. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to hunt the truth down like it stole from my child. Because it did. I stared at the blanket, then back at the sink, the ring, the message. He thought that would be enough. He thought the symbols would say everything. He underestimated me. He didn't just leave a woman. He created a mother on a mission, and he had no idea what that would cost him. The day after he left felt like falling through wet cement. I moved, but barely. Ate nothing. Slept in pieces. Every sound in the house was an echo of him. Every drawer I opened was a reminder that he'd touched everything and taken what mattered. I sat on the floor of Miles's room and stared at the mobile I'd made while pregnant. Stars and clouds above a crib, now too quiet. Miles didn't understand. He kept asking when Daddy was coming home. "Did he go on a plane, Mama?" I lied. I nodded. I told him maybe. Because how do you explain that a man who read bedtime stories 3 nights ago emptied your savings and left you with a message? Colder than a court summons? I told him we'd be okay. And then I cried into the blanket once he was asleep. I didn't answer texts. I didn't return calls. Tess left voicemails checking in. Madison texted once. "Don't overreact. He needs space." Space? He stole from our child. And her concern was about his comfort? That was the first time I truly felt the fire rise in my chest. I wasn't just abandoned. I was insulted. I checked the bank again. No mistake. No reversal. The money was gone. Transferred in full to an unknown external account. I called the bank. Filed a claim. They said it would be investigated, but the account was joint. Joint. I could feel my heart pounding in my ears. The law didn't care about ethics, just signatures. I went through our documents, old emails, tax files, things I'd never questioned before, and I saw it. Little hints he'd been preparing this for months, changing beneficiaries, removing me from certain accounts, shifting Miles's savings into different investment vehicles without telling me. And I signed things. I trusted him. Like a fool, I punched the bathroom mirror. Not hard enough to break it, but hard enough to feel something. The pain grounded me. My reflection looked like a stranger. Hair matted, eyes swollen. But beneath all of it, something new. Not grief. Not yet. Just fury. Bright. Unapologetic. He didn't just leave me with bills and broken promises. He left, me with his guilt. And somehow, the world would still expect me to protect his image, for Miles's sake. But I wouldn't. Not anymore. He crossed a line no father should ever even approach. He took innocence and turned it into collateral. Tess came over that night. She didn't ask questions. Just held me while I sobbed into the baby blanket. I told her everything. Every detail. Every pattern I'd ignored. She didn't say, "I told you so." She said, "Let's burn it all down." And I nodded. Because the part of me that wanted to protect him was gone. I started printing things. Receipts. Statements. I built a file. I created a folder called Truth. Every lie had a document. Every theft had a date. Every manipulation had a cost. I was no longer Camille the wife. I was Camille the witness. And I was going to testify with evidence, not emotion. But that didn't stop the crying. It came in waves. Sharp, sudden. While making toast. While folding socks. While watching Miles play with a truck his father bought him. Every good memory now held poison. And I didn't know how to detox without cutting the past open. The worst was bedtime. Miles wouldn't sleep without the blanket. The one Noah left behind like a cruel joke. He'd ask me to tell the daddy story, the one about the time he rescued a puppy. I told it, with shaking voice. because betrayal in a baby's name hits different. It sinks deeper. I was drowning in pain, yes, but pain has a way of transforming. It becomes sharp. It becomes motivation. It becomes the fuel that lights the path forward. And that night, while holding my son in one arm and my laptop in the other, I found it. A login, a receipt, a name I didn't recognize, a location, an email tied to a hotel in another state. And that's when I smiled, because this wasn't heartbreak. It was betrayal in a baby's name, and I was done letting it win. I woke up at dawn and grabbed the blanket first. It still smelled of home and baby powder, contrasting sharply with the lead in my chest. I spread it across the kitchen table and laid out my printouts. Bank receipts, hotel bookings, that strange email from a concierge service. The blanket anchored me. It was the thread tying his deceit to my reality. I sent Tess the scanned files. She replied instantly, "Good catch. Let's dig deeper." We headed to the bank branch, armed with photos and timestamps. The banker frowned at the ATM withdrawal. It's unusual for a minor's account. But because it was joint, his hands were tied without a subpoena. So we filed, officially. Next, I checked the hotel name. It was registered under a subtle alias. I found reviews, a bar on site, photos. On one shot, a man at the desk, tattooed forearm, that familiar posture. I blew the picture up and froze. It was Noah, sitting with his head down, the blanket draped on a nearby chair. I took screenshots and zoomed in on his wrist. The birthmark. Confirmed. My pulse raced, but I smiled. I just smiled. Because I had the one thing he left behind. Proof. He thought he disappeared. I thought he hid in another state. But he left pieces. The blanket, the trail, his own recklessness. Armed with photographic evidence, I called a lawyer. She asked for everything. Records, receipts, photos. I sent it all. I'd slept maybe 3 hours in 2 days, but I couldn't rest. I didn't need to sleep. I needed answers and justice. I needed to protect Miles, and that meant tracking Noah down. Then came the breakthrough. The hotel concierge confirmed his stay. 2 nights, paid with a card linked to a shell company Noah used for business expenses. Their email signature contained it, the same one on the ATM withdrawal receipt. We had a line connecting everything. Savings, hotel, man in picture. I forwarded it to the police. They didn't move fast, but they moved. They issued a subpoena. The bank froze the account where Noah transferred the money. The hotel provided logs and keycard swipes. Every detail led back to him. Slowly, methodically, like I was assembling the pieces of a puzzle he'd foolishly left behind. Tess came over, holding coffee, watching me work at the kitchen table piled with evidence. She smiled at the blanket. "I think we win," she said softly. She saw the way it had transformed, from symbol of loss to symbol of power. And she was right. I felt that too. With a court date set, I drafted a letter to the judge outlining the emotional and financial abuse, emphasized the theft from a minor. I included photos of the hotel room with the blanket. I wrote that the stolen money was not just cash. It was a child's future, his trust, his beginning. As I sealed the envelope, I felt something shift in my chest. Not anger, not pain, steel, clarity. That blanket, tattered, soft, maternal, had led me straight to the heart of his betrayal. And now it was going to set the terms of his reckoning. I looked at the clock. It was noon. Time to breathe. Time to regroup. And time to step into the courtroom as a mother who refused to be silenced. Because now, I wasn't just fighting for what was stolen. I was fighting for truth itself. The courthouse was colder than I expected. Sterile walls, buzzing fluorescents, the weight of lives broken behind every closed door. but I walked in with my shoulders square and the baby blanket folded neatly in my bag. Not because I needed comfort, but because I wanted him to see what he left behind, what he couldn't outrun. Noah sat across the room, tie loose, jaw tight. He didn't look at me. He looked through me, like I was just another obstacle. Not the woman he built a child with. Not the one he kissed goodnight. Just someone who had the power to ruin him now. And he was right. I did. My lawyer laid out every document. The savings trail, the false transfers, the hotel photos, the email aliases. The court went still when she described the account in Miles's name. Drained. The judge frowned. I watched Noah's foot twitch. He hadn't expected this. He thought I'd crumble. Thought I'd protect his name. I didn't. I exposed it. We filed civil charges for theft, emotional distress, and financial fraud. He looked stunned when the bailiff handed him the formal notice. Like no one had ever held him accountable before. Like women were supposed to cry, not fight. But I wasn't his wife anymore. I was the reckoning. I pulled the blanket from my bag during testimony, unfolded it carefully, held it in my lap while I spoke. The courtroom wasn't expecting that. Neither was he. This, I said, was the one thing he promised never to touch, the last thing he took, the first thing he abandoned. My voice didn't shake. His did. Madison showed up, sat behind him, crossed her arms. Her silence was telling. She didn't smile. She didn't speak. I think even she knew this was indefensible. I didn't acknowledge her, not once. Her loyalty had consequences, and I had no more space for people who protect monsters in families' clothing. The judge ordered restitution, froze his accounts, demanded a full audit of every transfer, and, best of all, legal action to return Miles's savings, plus damages, not just for what was taken, but for the trauma it caused. I didn't blink when the sentence was read. I just looked at the blanket and smiled. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. I gave them nothing but one sentence. He didn't just steal money. He stole trust from a child. It echoed across headlines. I didn't care about the attention. I cared that maybe, just maybe, another woman wouldn't fall for a man like him after hearing that. Noah called once, a blocked number. I picked, up out of curiosity. "You didn't have to do this," he said. I answered simply, "You did it to yourself." Then I hung up. That was the last time I heard his voice, and I felt cleaner for it. Miles asked if Daddy was coming home. I told him, "He made choices that hurt people, but we're safe now." I didn't lie. I didn't sugarcoat. Because truth, even when painful, is the foundation of trust. And I was building something new on truth alone. He thought I'd break. I brought the storm. 6 months later, the house feels different. Not emptier, lighter. There's still the hum of cartoons in the morning, the clatter of little feet, the quiet chaos of motherhood. But the shadows are gone. The air feels honest again. Like peace isn't something I have to beg for. It's something I earned. I repainted the hallway. Took down our wedding photo. In its place, I framed Miles's drawing of us. Just him and me, holding hands under a rainbow. No daddy. Just truth. His little heart understood more than I gave him credit for. And somehow, that drawing healed something in me I didn't know was broken. I gave Miles the baby blanket one night, not to sleep with, but to keep. "This kept you safe," I told him. "Now it's yours to protect." He smiled, wrapped it around his shoulders like a cape. It no longer carried weight. It carried story, memory, strength. The money was returned, every cent and then some. I opened a new account, just in my name, just for Miles. I don't check it obsessively. I check it with pride. Because this time, it's untouchable. This time, it's guarded not by a man, but by a woman who learned to never surrender her power. Again, Tess and I started a support group for women who've endured financial betrayal. It started with 5 of us in a living room. Now it's a full circle, a growing voice. We don't speak in whispers anymore. We say the words out loud: abuse, manipulation, theft, and we say them without shame. Madison never apologized. She moved across the state, blocked me. Good. She was just another echo of Noah's lies, and I don't collect echoes anymore. I collect peace. I collect truth. I collect the quiet pride of knowing I didn't crumble. I rebuilt. People ask if I'll ever forgive him. I say no. Not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. Some things shouldn't be forgiven. Some things need to be remembered, so they're never repeated. I won't raise my son to forget. I'll raise him to recognize, to trust his gut, to speak even when it shakes. Sometimes, late at night, I still wake up and reach for the empty side of the bed. Then I turn over, not out of grief, but out of gratitude. Because I didn't lose my family. I kept it. I trimmed the rot. I saved the roots. I don't wear my wedding ring anymore. I wear a thin silver band now. Miles picked it out at a craft fair. It cost $5, but it means more than that gold ever did, because it wasn't given in illusion. It was given in love. Noah may have stolen from our son, but I gave our son the truth. And that truth became the beginning of something real. Something neither of us ever needed his name to build.